Hello and welcome to another episode of an artist breaking down his own work. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, just breaking it down simply for me to reflect on, and for anyone who wants to get into pyrography or is interested in pyrography, or watch an artist rip his work apart. So today's episode is light and dark, much like this espresso, very dark. This isn't sponsored, but Skull Crusher Coffee is very good. Make sure you've got your coffee or beverage of choice, and let's get into it. So here we are. As per usual, with most projects, I start with the eye. This was what it was and possibly is the best piece I've ever done, in my opinion. It was one of the first pieces I ever did, because as you can see with my pen, it was one of the first pieces I ever did that I actually stepped back and went, good God, that's quite a similarity to the original image. And I have just been talking over the whole entire... Right, so as you can see here, as I said in my previous video, which was the lioness breakdown, don't burn solid lines, but as you can see here, I did it because I was just starting out and I have learned to not do it, but also how to burn deep enough and dark enough that should it be an error, that you can erase it quite easily with files, and it's salvageable is the word I'm looking for there. So let's carry on. So as you can see here, I've gone from obviously where the top of the, if I take the glasses off, from where, as you can see in the reference picture, where the eyebrow sort of really comes over and is really defined, because obviously it's a lot lighter than obviously the blackness of the eye. I've burnt that line there because, though I will say it nearly every single time, don't burn solid lines, it's really handy to have that solid line there and that pupil. This is the early development of how I do my eyes. So I use the darkest patch of an eye, whether that be the pupil or the actual sort of where the eyebrow like sort of hangs over the eye. I use that line to sort of smudge down, sort of fade it from like that real darkness to obviously the light of the eyeball itself. But as you can see in this video, it being one of the first pieces I've ever done, I've obviously only just started learning. This is a big stepping stone in how I burn. I would say this piece kind of set the boundaries of burning, and like I think I learned most of my techniques, and I will use the same techniques I did for this piece on every single image, whether it's a lion, whether it's a bear, cheetah, or a dog. I'll use the shading or the toning, or just every single technique I've used here has either been adapted or improved, or is the exact same in every single piece I do to this day, which just proves practice does make perfect, in the sense of practice makes perfection, because you practice and you go, okay, this didn't work, but this did, or this didn't work because of this, so you adapt it in the next piece. That's why I don't really do the same piece over and over again. There are a few pieces which have been Eileen, for example. I'll put a picture on screen below somewhere. Eileen, I've done a couple times. I'm currently doing a tabletop design with 4 half faces of animals, and I'm doing a bear again because that piece, someone was willing to buy it and bought it quite quickly, so it must have been alright. So I'm going to do that one. I'm currently doing that one again, as you'll probably see on my social media if you follow me. Don't have to. You might have just stumbled across this video and been like, what's this dickhead doing? So yeah, that's the side quest over. Let's carry on. Yeah, so early development of technique. Burning the eye. I have burnt that eye very dark. If I get my fat head out of the way of this image. There. Burnt the eye very dark from the pupil, because as you can see in the reference picture, where the nose sort of is quarter in from the right, it goes really dark. It goes from really dark, curves around that sort of eyelid, and then goes light, and then into that sort of light and dark fur. But with the eye, there's quite that light patch, and I, for some reason, decided to burn the whole of the eye very dark. I'm not quite sure what was going through my head, because obviously, as you can see here, I've started doing that really dark patch, but left the eye quite light. But with plenty of filing, you can sort of salvage this problem as such, but obviously it will leave sort of track marks where you filed it. But if you have quite a fine file, or take your time and do it really slowly and try not to make too much scratch marks, then you can salvage it. I mean, it does look a bit lighter now that I've gone round it, so like I say, this is a big stepping stone piece. It's not 100% perfect, but I look at it today and go, wow, that's really impressive, sort of, for the level I was working at and the tools I had, because this is quite a basic fine tip pen. So, oh, this nose, I cannot tell you. I did this nose. I don't know if I've put it, I haven't watched this footage back recently. I'm doing it now as a breakdown. This nose, my god, it took me, I'm not even exaggerating, a good 5 or 6 attempts. I don't know if I put all 5 attempts in the video, but if you look at it, you think, oh, it's just sort of at the top of the nose, it's just sort of curved, and then it's almost like a C shape. So from where it goes dark, it sort of C's over, and then there's sort of a line where it curves over, and obviously it sort of goes out the picture. I just couldn't get it. I kept sort of going off at an angle and almost trying to join the whole of the nose together instead of just doing that sort of circular bit where it curves over. The reference picture on here isn't particularly great. As you'll see here, I do the nose about 5 or 6 times, which, as you will see, I do burn it reasonably dark, but not enough that it's not able to take off with a file. But like I said last time, the more you file, the deeper you go into the wood, which in this case makes it a lot harder because obviously you're trying to create that effect of it coming up and over, and obviously you're filing in like down and under. It took me like 2 days. Like on the first day I was sort of tried to burn it. I was like, all right, this isn't working. Filed it, tried again, didn't work, filed it. And that evening I spent about 2 hours on my phone just sort of zooming in, looking at it, just sort of trying to picture in my head exactly how I would create that effect of sort of realism to the original image. I think I did a few sketches, just sort of trying to pencil it out, because obviously that is the English definition of pyrography, is drawing with fire. So if you just draw with a pencil, then you can practice it 1,000,001 times because you can just rub it out or do it again and again and again. But eventually I was just like, I'm going to settle for this simpler version of it, but it kind of works. But if I did do this image again, which is possible but unlikely, I'll definitely try and figure out how to do that, you know, hit that nail on the head for that bit. Most of this piece is quite a simple process of just burning reasonably light and just building up the layers. As for the fur on the side, I do apologise for the skipping. It is quite a headache. As you can see in this frame, I've got the reference image that I've used for the carbon paper outline. But I've also got a A4 print of the same image. I think I turned the brightness up a smidge and maybe the contrast down a smidge. So I just use a basic editing software, whether that's Microsoft or the photo editing on my PC. I don't use anything elaborate like Photoshop or anything because you've got to pay for it, and at the moment I don't have the finance, and I don't really see the point in trying to make the image as close to a pyrography image when I've spent so many years using just black and white images, because that's just what I've used. So trying to use a specialised, or should we say professional edited photo to help me more, I think would worsen the effect. But for anyone looking into getting into pyrography, maybe that's something you might need or might want. It's up to you. But I've spent the whole time doing pyrography, doing it with black and white, and I think I'll just stick with that because there's no need for that level of professionalism unless, you know, I get commissioned by, you know, a big museum or big gallery and they go, it needs to be absolutely immaculate. I might, you know, use a free trial or something, but for now I'll stick with the black and white pictures. Sorry about the rambling, but if you've watched any of my videos, apologies for hitting the mic as well, if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I ramble a lot, but the editing means that I can record for 2 hours and I'll cut about an hour of rambling out. So I do try my best not to ramble, but a lot of the rambles do relate, so I've got to try and cut out the irrelevant rambling. So let's carry on. So yeah, like I say, a lot of this is literally just soft burning, building up the form. It's not necessarily about burning detail, because in my opinion it's quite a basic image if you take it apart. It's literally just the eye. When I look at this image, I start with the nose where it's quite light and it sort of just curves down, and you've got that section of the face, and you've got the eye, and then where it curves down from the sort of top of the nose to the top of the brow. So you've got the nose bit there and then the brow there, and you've got the eye that curves down, and then you've got sort of the top of the head, the forehead curves down, and then that sort of mane on the other side, on the left hand side. So if you break it down like that, it's a pretty simple image because you just do the sections, and then almost just blend them together. Well, the eye bit actually curves down and joins up with that forehead that comes down. And then, because it's a black background, I left the edge sort of as plain as possible to try and get to like burn it quite dark, as you'll see in a bit. It's not a great frame there, but as you can see, I started with the eye, worked my way down a bit, did the nose, worked that bit down, and then sort of worked it from the bottom of the piece up, and then just sort of building the image instead of sort of carrying up the face, just sort of carrying on the image from right to left, because I'm left-handed as well. That's always the best thing to do, is work from whatever hand you work with. So if you're left-handed, work from right to left. Just minimises the amount of smudging of pencil marks, carbon marks, because I've had a few pieces where I've burnt just all over the shop, smudged off details, and then got carried away burning and gone, I've smudged off the pencil marks that off essentially the guidelines. To prevent me from just continually burning down, I'll have guidelines to be so that when I'm locked in, I just sort of follow the guidelines, making sure obviously I check the image, but also it's a sort of reference point to where in the image I'm burning, because sometimes you can get a bit, at least I can, after a good 5 hours of burning, you're like, where am I at exactly in the image? All right, so about that distance from the eye, about that, yeah, all right, so, and then you could just, yeah. That's the problem of getting locked in and sort of burning continuously. It's just sometimes you do get lost in the piece, but that is the creative process, I guess. So let's carry on. Once again, not necessarily taking the initiative, but taking the time just to pencil in details that might have been rubbed off or not put in yet. I did introduce the blowtorch in this piece. I will say in this piece, a lot of it was a bit like, I mean, a lot of my images actually do use a blowtorch, but it's a weird process using the blowtorch, because you can build up as many layers as you want with the pen. You come over with the blowtorch and it almost like smooths it out, but keeps that tone, sort of that tone and shade of the pen underneath, but just smooths it out, and it can make a piece, because I can make a mistake of like just burning for hours, and I'm like, that does look like quite dense fur. You go over it with the blowtorch a bit and it sort of smooths it out a bit, makes it a bit thinner, and then you can sort of file in details or go back over it with the pen. I would advise, if you're blowtorching, maybe leave the blowtorched bit to cool down a bit, because I found with the nibs it doesn't burn as dark because it's obviously heated up already with the blowtorch, but that might just be me. I don't know if any other pyrographers are watching this for some reason. I don't know why you'd be watching a small artist like me talk absolute nonsense about his pieces, but if you are, do you leave your blowtorch bits for a bit before burning over them? Do you burn over your blowtorch bits? Because obviously I'm a very unique person and with a very unique medium, so interested to know if A, pyrographers are watching, and B, if you do similar techniques to me. Just reaching out. Just a little guy. Let's carry on before I say something even more stupid than that. Yeah, the top of the head was quite a interesting bit, because obviously at this point I'm not quite sure what I was thinking with this bit, because looking at the reference picture now, I can see that the forehead carries on, it's just a bit darker, and I've just gone, yeah, let's just do this in fur. This will work. And I think using the blowtorch sort of saved it from looking like a bag of shit. Excuse my French, but I don't think this piece would have looked as good had I not. I think I was more worried about that. Sort of right-hand side where it goes really dark, and didn't really sort of focus on where the forehead actually finished, and it was just fur. But, to be honest, I wasn't looking for an absolute replica, because it being one of the first pieces I ever did that looked quite good. As you can see here, it was during the period where I replaced my wire nib, because I think the pen was going anyway, so I was like, I'd rather buy a proper piece of kit, razor tip, invest in that, because I just loved pyrography at this point. It was originally a hobby, and I was just like, I love this, and I've sold one or two like really small pieces that were a bit crap. They were crap. It was literally like one of the first few pieces I did, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to turn this into something a bit more. obviously, I think at this point I was in college, so obviously couldn't turn it to a full-time business. And I only just started the business this year, 2026. And I think I did this pyrography in 23 or 24, so I had a couple years left. A couple years of practice before trying to take it to the real deal. Now onto the stupid one. And I say stupid because look at that reference picture. It's a good picture. Didn't print out as well as I'd hoped. I don't quite understand how I got the result I did, because it's such a intricate, not necessarily, not intricate, sorry. It's such a unfocused and dark in some patches and then bright in the other image. I didn't necessarily struggle with it. It was just a lot to work with, because obviously the eye itself in the original films isn't like a proper eye. It's like burnt. It's like got cataracts and it's just awful. So that was an interesting part of the burn. Weirdly, I did it quite quickly. I think I did the eye within like half an hour. I was like, oh, I'm not going to touch that eye, because that eye is just as good as it's ever going to get. But if you are choosing a picture, try and choose the highest quality sort of resolution, and obviously you can edit it, make it brighter, mess with the contrast. Anyway, so yeah, on to the second half of this piece. Oh yeah, I for some reason started with the lips on this piece. I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try and start a bit different on this one. I do remember I was like, let's not start with the eye this time, because I looked at the eye and went, yeah, nah, I'd rather not lose hope this early. Similar problem with this nose as well, but I was like, I think I actually didn't. The night I finished the left half, I was like, let's analyse this nose and do a few sketches so that we're not, going over it again and again and again and again. Try and get it first time, or at least second time. Because sometimes you've just got to trust the process, but know that there's a possibility you're going to have to do it again. Believe in yourself, but enough that you don't get cocky and be like, oh, I can do this first time. Because if you don't do it first time, you disappoint yourself and you feel like shit. Let's not beat around the bush. Artwork can make you feel a bit shit because you're not getting the results you want. Take it from a person that spent years beating themselves up because they weren't a professional after about the first 2 or 3 times trying to do it. But as you can see, I literally just did the best I could with what I had in this picture. A lot of black. Is this because I'm doing the eye? Yeah. Weirdly, with this eye, I did the reverse. So instead of doing it from the dark patch and doing it out into the light, I did the dark and then just got lighter and lighter. The image itself, I didn't have a great recording setup at this point. I think I'd only just got electric in the cabin, because this was roughly around the time I got the cabin. So yeah, it must have been 2023, because I will have had the cabin. No, 24. Sorry, because I will have had the cabin 2 years this year, 26. But yeah. This is the fresh setup, like a table and plugs. It took quite a while to get where I am now. Very set up down here. Now that is a better shot. As you can see here, reference picture on the left, smaller reference picture on the right. Just, yeah. I knew there was no point trying to burn those black edges. Just black out with the torch. Because if you try and burn it with the pen, it creates like indents. So if you want a smooth blackout background, burn as close as you can get to the image itself if you're doing a blackout background. And you can either use like a putty knife to blowtorch as close as you can get. And then I tend to just try and burn as, not lightly, but try not to push the pen down heavily. Try and keep the pen as close to the wood as possible so it burns, but try not to burn deep. Because obviously then it creates that sort of indent effect, because the light will hit it differently to how it hits the blowtorched, and it does look a lot different. Trust me when I say that. I've tried to burn blackouts with pens. It doesn't look great. Blowtorch it. This piece did, like, the only way I can refer to this piece, it felt like a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Literally taking it like a square centimetre at a time, just burning this bit, filing it. Literally just burning, filing, hence why you can see the files a lot for this piece and not an awful lot in the previous side. I don't feel there's a lot to talk about with this, like the whole piece in general, but because I was still learning to use the new pen, because I was like, I don't want to burn it too hot just in case it burns, and obviously the nibs heat up a bit differently as well, depending on sort of how long the nib is and how thin it is. But boy, did I have some fun learning to use it, and I still am learning to use it because I've started buying solid pen nibs rather than interchangeables, because the thread on the interchangeable screws keeps breaking, either because I keep tightening it too tightly or because the thread just keeps going. I'm not 100% sure, but then it did last me quite a while the first time, and then I've gone through about 2 in 6 months, so it is probably just me using them a lot as well, because I burn at least 6 times a week for at least 3 hours a day, so it's good. 18 hours? Yeah, good 18 hours a week. Yeah, as you can see, yeah, because the edge is so dark and then goes so light, I was like, there's no point in trying to blowtorch this bit, just burn it with the pen, because then it's easier to control how quickly. Granted, yeah, I've used the blowtorch here, but I had it like the flame literally right on the edge. I'm surprised I didn't catch the paper. To be honest, I'm not quite sure why I didn't move the paper for this bit, but let's not get into those nitty-gritty details. I think this bit's going to jump a lot because there's not an awful lot going on. It's quite literally just filling in the gaps, making sure to keep that correct sort of flow and structure. I think was primarily the whole basis of this side of the piece, was just getting the correct tone and structure. And then I think primarily, yeah, for this side it was primarily getting the right shape with the burn as lightly as you could, and then sort of just blowtorching over it to get a smooth effect, because there wasn't with this particular character, because it is a character from a film, his face is generally quite smooth. There's not a lot of hair, and obviously it being sort of war paint that creates that it's from the second Planet of the Apes film. I don't think it was actually in the film. I think it was sort of from the posters that inspired me to do this piece. He's got war paint on his face, and obviously turning it black and white turned the war paint really bright, which meant this piece was very contradictive in colour. But blowtorching it, I think, finished that effect and just made it masterful. Obviously not as professional as it could be, but I love it. I love this piece. I will be sad the day it sells, but it's one of my first pieces that I just was amazed at how well it come out. It's so contradictive in a way that it looks great, but it's not as professional as it could be if I did it today. But then that's because it's a stepping stone piece. So, is there any more to this video? No, that is the end of it. So that's light and dark broken down. It's not as amazing as the previous video where I was like, oh, I did this, I did that, I did this. So yeah, I don't know how interesting these videos are. I was very amazed, and would like to say a huge thank you to everyone that watched the video. I did not expect as many people to watch it as they did. I was expecting to sort of upload it and have maybe 4 or 5 views, and 2 of them be me just checking that it's all edited together correctly. So a huge thank you to everyone that watched it and liked it. No comments yet, but I don't know if that's a good thing. Whether, commenting is like, oh mate, you spelt thesaurus wrong. Yeah, I know. Dyslexia. Like, thesaurus doesn't sound... We're not going to get into that. A, I hope this was reasonably helpful for anyone looking to get into pyrography. B, this video probably isn't a great example of how to do pyrography, but more the mindset of pyrography. So just do as many pieces as you can. I know wood is a bit expensive, but small pieces, big pieces, I personally believe it is about personal preference. I like to do big pieces because I can put as much detail in as possible, whereas with the smaller ones it's a lot harder to put detail. But I am this year going to try and do as many small pieces as I can. A, because people are probably more willing to go, alright, I'll spend 50 quid on, a small piece, than maybe not £600 on something that I'm worried is going to, pull my wall down because it's like 20 kilos, because wood is quite heavy. So yeah, I really hope this video was, at the very least, a good laugh for people to just sit down and just forget about the problems of the world and listen to an absolute pillock, myself, talk absolute crap about his work. It's not absolute crap, but you know what I mean when I say absolute crap. It's just me picking apart my work, having a good ramble at the expense of what people having a laugh with me, because I know I'm making myself look a bit of a tit, but I am who I am, and there's no point in me trying to, act a bit more sophisticated than I am, and pretend that I'm a fine art connoisseur. Have a look. It's not bad work. I would like to emphasise that point. I don't hate my work. I absolutely love this piece, and I'm not being sarcastic when I say, oh, I will cry the day I lose it. I will, but sometimes you have to sell your best pieces in order to inspire you to do another amazing piece. I do have quite a few pieces that I may or may not be. I am very hesitant to sell. This being one of them, because I look at it every single time and I can see part of it on the shelf now that I'm like, as much as I want to sell it and kind of need to sell it, I don't know if I want to. But sometimes you just have to. Like, I made this piece because I just enjoyed the films. But if someone wants to buy it, I'll put a link in the description to the original piece of this. If anyone's genuinely interested in buying it. I also have a greeting card of it. And I believe I do a fine art print. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. I'm definitely putting this on a mug. So if you don't want to spend the money to buy the original piece, you could just get a mug with these two faces on. But that's solely up to you. I'm not here to make a sales pitch. I'm just here to talk about my work, pick it apart a bit, and hope that at the very least people can have a little laugh, maybe learn something along the way. So if you like this video, hit that like button. If you haven't already, follow along, because I'm hoping to do as many of these as possible this year. I may even do 1 or 2 live so that people can ask questions instead of me sort of saying, oh, if you've got a question, comment below. If you do have a question, comment below. But don't feel pressured to follow along, because I'm not for everybody. So, I hope this was helpful. Hope you had a good laugh. If not, comment below why you didn't have a good laugh. Otherwise, I don't know. Go to the next video. Check out me. If you want to check out my profile, if you haven't subscribed already, feel free. Otherwise, carry on to the next video. But bid you good day. Wish you all the best. Cheers.